Don't worry, I know what you're thinking. You were seeing this microphone in my hands and you're thinking, what is she doing? Is she going to sing God? Please don't let her sing. And I'm not going to sing, I promise. But yeah, this is the only microphone that I have lying around in my house. So it's just gonna have to do this karaoke microphone. So yeah, anyway, welcome back to my channel. My name's Iris. I talk about books, and today specifically I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in January. I've got my little mug of tea with it's a tea with cinnamon, like the song. Yeah, anyway, I'm here to tell you about the books that I read in January, and I've got my little notebook with my thoughts on the books that I read. So it's very warm today, which is why I've got the fan. I've got a little fan next to me that's blowing my hair all over my face. So I think I'm just gonna tie it up. Give me a second. Okay, so the first book that I read in January is a book that I actually never heard of before until I read it. It is by an author. The reason I picked it up is because it showed up on my audiobook reading app that I have, and it was, sort of presented as this like brand new, never before, newly translated to English, never ever before, whatever, novel book by a very, very famous author, someone that I never read before, but about whom I had heard very much about. I have since then acquired what I would consider to be her most famous work, which is The Second Sex, and I am of course talking about Simone de Beauvoir. Sorry, I know I just pronounced that like an American. I can't say any French words or names, I'm sorry. But yeah, I have since then acquired The Second Sex, but it is not the book that I read. The book that I read it's a short novel or a novella called Inseparables or The Inseparables. It was apparently, I think, at least it was translated to English quite recently, like a few years ago. Well, it is now 2026, so I think that this was translated to English in 2021 or something like that. So it's been a while now, but yeah, it was presented like this, like brand new, right? Like discovery, like this never before in English, at least in English, I think. I don't know if the French version had been around for longer. But yeah, this is a short novel, and it's a little bit biographical. It's sort of based on Simone de Beauvoir's relationship with Sasa, her best friend. In the book, Beauvoir is called Sylvie, and Sasa becomes Andre, although Simone de Beauvoir does say that, she isn't Sylvie and Sasa isn't Andre, but basically that's who each character is based on. I really, really like this. I gave this, I think, 5 stars. We are following these two girls, Sylvie and Andre, from childhood to early adulthood. I'd say like their early 20s. It really is just, and this is obviously my opinion, my interpretation. I'm going to talk a little bit about like the different ways that this story obviously can be and has been interpreted by different people. Just my personal interpretation, I saw this book as a truly magnificent exploration and discussion of the depth of platonic love. And I actually saw a review and someone used the phrase platonic passion, which I loved because it truly is very passionate. The novel truly like discusses this very passionate relationship, this very passionate friendship between these two girls, these two women, Sylvie and Andre, which is obviously sort of, Beauvoir's depiction of her very own passionate relationship with Sasa in real life. Just the way that Sylvie sort of talks about her feelings for Sasa, the depth of those feelings, the depth of her devotion to her friend. And here's where we come to the issue of interpretation, which is not really an issue. I mean, every single story can be interpreted in different ways, and different people are going to interpret the same book in different ways. And this book is no different. So obviously this is a book that is also very much open to queer interpretation, and I saw several reviews of people saying very strongly, they feel very strongly that this was a romance between Andre and Sylvie. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As I said, everybody can interpret books the way that they want. It did bother me that a lot of these reviews were like, yeah, like this is like 100% romance, and like you can't interpret it any other way, and this is something, I mean, this is not like a unique issue. I have seen this a lot, and this is something that I struggle with myself. I think that it's very easy when you come across a piece of media and you see two people who feel so passionate, who seem to have like a lot of passion between them, who just feel very passionately about each other, and you have like a very strong connection. I think that because of the way that we are sort of like socialized and culturally, I feel like our culture in general, at least Western culture, is very much focused and directed towards romantic love and sexual love. And so we kind of see romantic love as the ultimate form of love and connection. And so when we come across two people who are obviously who love each other and who have a very deep connection, we immediately tend to assume that it has to be romantic. I actually thought about this a lot. I remember when I was watching the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's like with Sam and Frodo, like a lot of people are like, yeah, like no, like this is just like such a wonderful like example of like male friendship and like male platonic love, and then a lot of people are like, no, like they were gay, like they were in love. And I love both of them. Like on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, like let them be in love, like let Frodo and Sam kiss, or like that dude said, like who knows if they didn't, let them kiss. But then the other part of me is like, why do we always have to, like why do we always have to make it romantic? Like why can't two people just like be very unhinged about each other, like love each other, be like 100% devoted? Like I'm talking like devotion, admiration, so deep and profound. But why does it have to be romantic? I saw it as platonic, and there was a point in the book when I was reading it, I was like, is this going to be romantic? Like I wasn't sure if it was like romantic, if it was platonic, and I was a little bit like confused at the start. Then I very much, and I actually I read this with a friend of mine. We decided to I reached out to her and I was like, hey, do you want to like read this with me? Because I just think that it's about two girls who are like very good friends. Like I think it'd be like the perfect book to like buddy read, and it was. And so we read it together, and I was like, hey, like what is like we both reached a point where we were like, hey, like is this romantic? Is this platonic? Like what is going on? But yeah, we ultimately like sort of like we both agreed that it was platonic. And again, I can see why some people might think it's romantic, and I'm not saying that if you think it's romantic that it's not valid. Like it's 100% valid if you think that they were in love. It's just not like the way that I interpreted, the way that I saw it. Obviously, devotion and adoration are emotions that are reserved for romance only, And so it was just very refreshing to, at least in my interpretation, to see a friendship, to see that like in a friendship. But there's a lot of like just the way the women were suffocated by, could be like suffocated by obligation, whether that's like family obligation, religious obligations, social obligations, that kind of thing. Especially around the character of Andre. That was The Inseparables by Simone de Beauvoir. Really liked it. Very short, like honestly, it was like I think a 2.5 hour audiobook. But I truly enjoyed it. Very, very, very good. Obviously, I mean, Simone de Beauvoir. What else can you say? Oh, and this actually had an introduction by Margaret Atwood, and yeah, it was really cool to listen from Margaret Atwood herself. But yeah, anyway, man, I just yapped for 15 minutes about The Inseparables. Like, no, we gotta move on. We gotta move on. Okay, The Will to Change was the next book that I read by Bell Hooks. I had heard a lot about bell hooks. I have a lot of, I listened to this. I actually listened to a lot of audiobooks in general now that I think about it. Anyway, I heard a lot about bell hooks, and the audiobook app that I use has quite a lot of her works. So I was kind of like in a pickle as to which one I wanted to read. This was like, I had way too many choices. Ultimately, I settled on The Will to Change. So I just really wanted to read a book about masculinity. Actually, I wanted to read a book about toxic masculinity and just the way that, you know, the way that the patriarchy sort of affects man. That's what I wanted to read mostly, like the way that the patriarchy affects man, and this like, and the creation of this like sort of like toxic masculinity, the way that, you know, boys are brought up in patriarchal society and how that sort of like changes them and leads to, you know, men with toxic masculinity. And The Will to Change was, you know, seemed to be like the perfect thing to sort of like delve into all of those topics. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. I think that I'm going to love other bell hooks, other books, other works, but The Will to Change just wasn't. I'm not saying that it wasn't good, but I didn't like it personally. I think I went into it expecting something a lot different. I went into it expecting a lot more facts, and I was met with a lot more like a more reflective work. So it was a lot more like bell hooks, like just like own reflections rather than like hard facts and science, sort of like, if you know what I mean. Like a lot more philosophical at times. There were some like solid and insightful points, but it didn't, I don't know, to me, I feel like there were too many like quotes like from other authors and other works. It was like, I feel like every couple of lines like just was like some quote from someone else rather than like bell hooks like own words, and that got like a little annoying. It also felt like very repetitive, like each chapter was just like the same idea repeated over and over again, and there wasn't really like any practical or tangible like just, you know, like advice. I mean, obviously, like it's not like, oh, bell hooks is gonna like give us the solution to like how to end the patriarchy or like how to like fix men or how to make men heal from the patriarchy or anything like that. But I don't know, I was just expecting something more concrete, like more just more factual, I guess. Like, I don't know, it ended up being a lot more philosophical than what I had expected, and maybe that's my bad. Like, again, I've never read anything from bell hooks, and maybe like that's just the kind of like, maybe she's just like a philosophical writer and I'm like, I don't know, expecting something different from her that shouldn't be expected from, that I shouldn't be expecting. I definitely didn't like do too much research. So, and maybe I should have done a little bit more research on like her kind of writing, like what kind of books she writes. But yeah, I ended up giving it, I think, 3 stars. It just ultimately just left me wanting more. Like, I read that and I was like, hey, like, I thought I was gonna read a book that was gonna sort of like teach me about like the different ways that the patriarchy affects men and like how it affects them. And just like, I don't know, I feel like I would like, I really wanting to like come up with a lot more information than I did. Like, there wasn't a lot of information. It was just more like, again, bell hooks, like just like reflecting and like talking about like her own experiences with men. And like, again, it's not that I disagree with anything that she said. I think that I pretty much agree with everything that she said in that. It's just, I don't know, I didn't feel like there wasn't a lot of like solid argumentation or like facts or information. It was just like her thinking and like her thinking out loud in a lot of ways, it felt. So yeah, that was The Will to Change. Now, the other audiobook that I listened in January was a young adult contemporary sort of coming of age novel, and it's called Openly Straight. And I can't remember the name of the author, but I'm gonna like put a picture of the cover. This, okay, what did I think? I think I gave this 3 stars, and I have mixed feelings about this book. I thought the writing was quite funny, so Rafe's voice was quite funny. Okay, wait, no. First of all, I'm gonna tell you what this is about. And maybe you'll see like what my issue with the book was. So basically, we're following Rafe, who is openly gay, and he has always been openly gay, because he happens to have grown up in a very progressive town. So he's been able to come out very safely. He wasn't afraid to come out to his parents. His parents were very supportive. They like even threw him like a party to celebrate that like he had come out. His school also was like very like progressive. Obviously, this also sort of like talks about like microaggressions, I guess, or like maybe like even if you don't face like blatant homophobia, there will still be like small ways in which people will be homophobic. But like in general, the whole point of the book, the whole premise of the book is that Wave has been able to like safely come out and be gay, but he sort of thinks that everyone just sees him as gay. So when like he's got this label that sort of like determines the way that people see him, and like they don't see Rafe, they just see gay Rafe. And so because of this, he decides to move to go to boarding school, like I think across the country. I don't know exactly where the school is, but it's kind of like quite far away from where he grew up. So he decides to go to an all boys boarding school, and he's going to pretend to be straight. Whether he's just going to, I mean, he's not gonna like, yeah, like basically he's just like, yeah, like I'm not gonna tell anyone I'm gay. I'm just like, I'm gonna be Rafe, and like I'm just gonna let people assume that I'm straight, and like if they assume I'm straight, I'm not gonna correct them, because I just want to be me without like any labels. And so he goes to his boarding school, and he he finds himself like suddenly like playing sport and like being friends with like the jocks at the school, which is something that he's like, I never actually like could be truly friends with the other guys at my school because because of the fact that I was gay and stuff, and like they wouldn't be homophobic, but like there was always like this like unspoken rule that they were kind of like uncomfortable around him. My issues with it, the good things, I thought this was quite funny, especially at first. Like it was a very like funny narration, but Rafe became very unlikable very fast. He was just like so, I don't know, it's just like he was so, I mean, he was kind of aware that he was like very privileged in the sense that he was able to like come out safely, but it was like his like whole complaint the whole book was like, oh yeah, like I wish people would stop being like supportive of me being gay. Like everyone was like, dude, like that's your problem. That like people are too supportive of you being gay. Like, oh, your parents are too supportive of you being gay. Your mom, like, I don't know, like basically it was like, is that really a problem? Obviously, I think like what the book is trying to ultimately like talk about is about labels and how, you know, labels can sometimes be, you know, they're not always the best thing, like good as they can be and as much good as they can do, they can also be quite harmful. And I talked about a lot of really interesting topics. I found like the topics that I tried to discuss very interesting, but Rafe just came across as a very like privileged and like sort of like entitled character. And obviously like a straight person, you know, them being straight, it's not like a thing, right? Like it's just considered to be the norm, so it's not a big deal. But when someone's gay, suddenly it's just like it becomes like a part of who they are, like in an identity sense. And like you see them and you're like, oh, like it's not just like, oh, it's Rafe, it's like gay Rafe. That's basically what the book is trying to say, which, you know, I think again very interesting like topic discussion. Rafe just happened to be very unlikable. Like the way the execution, I don't think was well done. And also my other like biggest issue with this book, which is like the random but like very like venomous misogyny. Like you would just be reading the book and suddenly like you would have this paragraph, like just like the most awful, like just like casual misogyny thrown in throughout like the book. There's like this passage where like Rafe is just like talking about like what it would be like if like he found women attractive and realizing that it wasn't like the woman being attractive, it was just like the makeup, and like the makeup was like her vanity. And I don't know, it was just like awful. I was like, what? Like what? Where did this come from? Like it was just so random. My other issue is but as I said, Rafe lives in like a very progressive town and he has like very progressive parents. And Rafe would just like, and they were vegan, and he would just like constantly, it was like one of the things about me with this book was a constant vegan bashing. If you don't know this, I'm vegan, and I'm quite used to it. Like we're always the butt of the joke, like vegan food and stuff. But it still pisses me off. I don't know. It's just one of the other things that pissed me off about this book is that Rafe is constantly like complaining about the vegan food, which, you know, if he doesn't want to be vegan, like that's okay. But like, why? I don't know. It's a personal like pet peeve, obviously. But yeah, the misogyny is like the biggest thing. Rafe just seemed to need like a constant reality check all the time. Like people were constantly sort of like, hey, dude, check your privilege, because, you know, most of us, we can't just like safely come out, or like our parents like wouldn't be like supportive like yours are. It's not about like guilt tripping Rafe into like being like okay with labels, but he did sort of like it truly seemed like a very insensitive sort of like issue, like, oh, like my parents are too supportive of me being gay. Like it was a bit like, I mean, obviously it wasn't just his parents, it was like everyone around him just like saw him as gay. And I do think that is a very like valid issue. I just think that Rafe came across as very like entitled and privileged, and and just he became very unlikable very quickly. That was openly straight. I don't really recommend it. I mean, if you want to go and check it out for yourself, do it. I did have fun at first, but then just I won't. I don't know. I wouldn't really recommend it. I don't know. I would go out there. I mean, mostly because of the misogyny. I just feel like it was so just like randomly, like casually misogynistic. It just came out of nowhere. We would just be reading the book and said, boom, we hate women. And I was like, why? So yeah, I would just go pick up another queer book, hopefully one written by a woman who doesn't hate women. This is a book that I started in January, and I read most of it in January, but I did finish it on like early February, but it's still going on my January. Anyway, this is the complete, but not the complete, the selected poems by Keats. the Penguin Classics edition. So this bad boy had been sitting on my shelves since basically I was like 13 or something like that. Obviously, I mean, thank God I didn't pick this up before, because 13-year-old me couldn't have handled the English in this book. If you don't know, you probably do, because it's probably very obvious. But English isn't my first language. I love this. Like when I finished it, I wasn't sure, but since then, I like this a lot. John Keats, never should have doubted you. I mean, like, I knew he would be a great poet because it's John Keats, and obviously everybody knows that. But yeah, just so many gems in this little book. Not that little, but yeah. Um, Truly, I mean, I will say sometimes he does get like very fanciful and very like purple, prosy. Obviously, there's no prose in this; it's all poetry. But ultimately, enjoyed this very much. Truly, just some beautiful lines. And it's just beautiful. Also, like funny. Like there are so many like poems that he wrote but like never published that are just like funny or like ironic or like sarcastic or whatever you want to call it. And I love this. There's this one called "To Mrs. Reynolds' Cat," and I just love it. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, really enjoyed this. That was just like the poems of John Keats. And that is everything that I read in January of this year. It's not a lot, I know, but it is what it is, and I'm happy. I'm happy with it. Anyway, tell me what you read in January, or if you read any of the books that I've mentioned. If you have any recommendations, I don't know. I'm just happy to read your thoughts on anything regarding books. Ciao.